Hey everyone, my name is Deanna and I'm a dietetic intern with Nutrition Inc. Today, we're going to be talking about the gut-brain connection, also known as the gut-brain axis. We're going to be covering key topics such as defining the gut-brain axis and the gut microbiome, clarifying how the gut and the brain communicate, and also talking about the gut-brain axis's relationship to stress. So let's get started. So what is the gut-brain connection? The gut-brain connection, or the gut-brain axis, is a bidirectional link, think a two-way street, between the central nervous system and part of the peripheral nervous system known as the enteric nervous system. The enteric nervous system is a collection of neurons that exist throughout the gastrointestinal tract and govern much of our digestive function, while the central nervous system specifically governs just the brain and the spinal cord. The enteric nervous system is so sensory derived that it actually contains more neurons than the human spinal cord, and it's often referred to as the body's second brain. These two systems communicate and connect, and their relationship is called the gut-brain axis. The functions of the gut microbiome, as well as the vagus nerve, have been specifically related to the functions of the gut-brain axis. These two factors act as important lines of communication in this connection. So, what is the microbiome? Simply put, our bodies are big bags of bacteria, and we are really just miniature ecosystems of microbial communities. But these microbes are smart and serve a function and purpose. For instance, the microbiome of our skin is a lot different than the microbiome of our lungs, which is a lot different than the microbes that live in our gut. Our gut microbiome specifically refers to the microorganisms that exist with our digestive tract, and this includes bacteria, fungus, protozoa, and viruses. The majority of the body's microbiome actually exists in the gut, specifically in the large intestine. These bacteria and organisms help digest and break down food, prevent bacteria from spreading or causing disease, and even produce vitamins like vitamin K and B vitamins. Our microbe affects our digestive health, but it also has connections to our mental health as well. The state of our gut microbiome is associated with mood, anxiety disorders, and even stress. In fact, it was found that the development of a microbiome was specifically related to the development of central nervous system and enteric nervous systems. And a lack of a microbiome has been associated with digestive dysfunction, neurological disorders, and altered responses to stress. In terms of bowel diseases, most cases were associated with psychiatric conditions, and dysbiosis, or an imbalance in the gut microbiota, has been associated with central nervous disorders such as autism, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and MS. So far, you can already see that the gut-brain connection is pretty strong. Most information available on the gut microbiome right now is research and correlation based. However, the results have been pretty clear that the brain and gut very much interact with each other. As of now, here's what we do know. We know that organisms in the microbiome have the ability to communicate with the central nervous system. Also, while it's not 100% certain, researchers are pretty sure that the microbiota may be stimulating the vagus nerve to send signals to the brain and the central nervous system. So what is the vagus nerve? The vagus nerve is one of the 12 cranial nerves, which all extend from the brain and branch out through the body. Of those 12 cranial nerves, the vagus nerve is the longest and most complex, and comes from the brain down into the abdomen. The vagus nerve is responsible for regulating the digestive system by stimulating muscle contractions and hormonal releases in the body, but also play a key role in inflammation, blood pressure, and stress response. To regulate these functions, the vagus nerve acts like a major highway between the brain and the gut, constantly sending information from our digestive system to the brain and vice versa. Therefore, the brain has constant tabs on the functions of our stomach, intestines, and most likely our microbiome. As I said earlier, the microbiome is said to interact with the vagus nerve. We experience this gut-brain connection in times when the microbiome produces chemicals like serotonin and oxytocin, which stimulate the vagus nerve and ultimately alter our moods. So now we know that the vagus nerve is a key line of communication between the brain and the gastrointestinal system, and that this occurs through both nervous and hormonal responses. We also now know that the gut microbiome is a loud voice and a key player in the gut-brain connection, and different microbiota can stimulate the vagus nerve to keep the emotional, digestive, and hormonal states of the body in balance. Clearly, we're seeing a strong connection between the central and enteric nervous system, and have a better understanding of the gut-brain axis. Now that we know how this all works, I think it's time to bring up what affects the gut-brain axis as a whole. So let's talk a little bit about stress. So stress can be whatever your personal body responds and reacts to. For example, it can be day-to-day activities like work, school, finances, and anxiety. It could be a one-time event, maybe like a fender bender or anticipating a presentation. Or it could also be something chronic, such as an illness or infection or some type of inflammation occurring in the body. In the body, stress shows up as the hormone cortisol. When we're stressed, for whatever the reason, the vagus nerve, as well as a helping friend called the HPA axis, stimulate the release of cortisol through the adrenal glands. Cortisol is known as the fight or flight hormone, and it causes an increase in heart rate and blood pressure and moves blood away from the digestive and immune system in favor of nerves and muscles. Think about how your body reacts after a fender bender, watching a scary movie, or when you're nervous. Dizzy, a racing heart, panicked feelings, maybe your stomach is dropping. These are all common symptoms. But your body is in fight or flight mode. You are stressed. It's not practical to avoid stress, but it is important for the body to respond appropriately. The vagus nerve is part of the rest and digest system, and it's in charge of making sure that our responses to stress are well regulated. When we're stressed all of the time, it can weaken this function of the vagus nerve, resulting in exaggerated and erratic cardiovascular and hormonal responses. But our microbiome seems to also have an effect on our stress levels as well. For instance, in multiple studies, it was found that mammals without a microbiome responded more intensely to stressors than those that did have a microbiome. Therefore, it seems that when the microbiome is off balance, it also affects the functions of the vagus nerve as well. So to recap here, both the vagus nerve and the gut microbiome play an important part in the relationship between the brain and the gut, and their functions are directly affected by our stress levels and stress responses. In conclusion, we've learned that the gut-brain axis is the connection between the central nervous system and the enteric nervous system. We also now know that the microbiome is a collection of microorganisms that directly affect the central and enteric nervous systems. And we now know that the vagus nerve is a key line of communication between the brain, the gut, and the microbiome, and that all of these are affected by stress. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video useful and interesting. If you like this content and want to see more, be sure to check out my Instagram page called Be Free with D. All right, see you later. Hey everyone, my name is Deanna, and I'm a registered dietitian. Wow. Okay. The vagus nerve is one of the 10, no it's not. That's gibberish. Oh, G connector in the entire brain axis as a whole. None of that makes sense. Don't. Click. Okay. Am I not smiling through this whole thing? Do I look really serious?
No.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for listening.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.